Whereas a flat two-dimensional form is called a shape, a round three-dimensional form is called a mass. In 3D work such as sculpture and architecture, mass can be either actual or it can be implied. Actual mass is equivalent to the weight of a thing. Heavier things have greater masses. Implied mass is more subjective and has more to do with the perceived presence of a thing. This sculpture by the British artist Rachel Whiteread has a very monumental mass, both actual and implied. It is installed in the old town center in Vienna, Austria, and it was created as a memorial to the lives lost in the Holocaust. In this case, the actual mass of the solid concrete is meant to reinforce the implied weight and permanence of its subject. The piece itself was created by casting the inside of a library with concrete. The concrete blocks were then removed and reassembled outside of the room to recreate its interior space. The result is a full-sized room that is impossible to enter. The exterior walls of this room are lined with the spines of books that cannot be opened, lives that were never written, and stories that cannot be read. This sculpture by the Italian artist Alberto Giacometti feels much less permanent than Whiteread's memorial. Due to its diminished weight, the actual mass of this piece is substantially lighter than that of Whiteread's. Its implied mass is less as well because the mass is much more thinly dispersed. The figure's long, bony appendages and high center of gravity make it appear weak and fragile as opposed to strong and solid. The Italian Renaissance sculptor Michelangelo had a philosophy about the dispersion of mass in relation to successful sculpture. In his opinion, good sculpture can be rolled down a hill and still retain its structural integrity. Michelangelo's relatively narrow definition of good sculpture is based on Greek and Roman ideals that the more permanent a thing is, the closer it is to perfection. Now, if Giacometti's piece were rolled down this proverbial hill, its integrity would not stand a chance. Even though it's made of cast bronze, this piece may not even survive a fall off of its pedestal. But if there was a brick with the same actual mass as Giacometti's pointing man, the solidity and gravity of that form would give it an implied mass that is more equivalent to that of Whiteread's larger memorial. This South Korean artist Do-Ho Soo's piece, Seoul Home, LA Home, New York Home, Baltimore Home, London Home, Seattle Home, is a fabric replica of his bedroom that he is able to fold up and take with him to the various cities that he visits. The mass of this piece is substantially lighter than that of Whiteread's memorial. It is lighter in its actual mass because it's made of fabric, and it's lighter in its implied mass since the piece seems to float as it suspends from the ceiling. The volume of this piece, though, may be equivalent to that of Whiteread's. If this piece is the same size as Whiteread's memorial, then they share the same volume, or the amount of space enclosed within a mass. In 2D media, such as drawing and painting, the mass of depicted forms cannot be actual, and therefore it must be implied. This contemporary British painter, Jenny Saville, explores notions of female self-image in her work. Her paintings, which are exaggerated self-portraits, comment on the image that she sees in the mirror and how it compares to our culture's artificial standards of beauty. Saville effectively convinces us of the roundness and dimensionality of her forms. In next week's lecture on light, we will discuss the different ways that artists can create the illusion of mass on a two-dimensional surface.